40 minutes before my sister walked down the aisle, my water broke in the bridal suite. I was 8 months pregnant, terrified, and begging someone to call an ambulance. Instead, my mother ripped my phone from my hands, shoved me into a storage room, locked the door, and said, "You can wait until the ceremony is over. You're not ruining your sister's big day." I screamed until my voice disappeared. Then everything went black. Hours later, I woke up in a hospital bed surrounded by police officers, my husband in tears, and my mother begging me not to tell them what she'd done. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old, happily married to the kindest man I've ever known, and 8 months pregnant with our first child. If you'd asked me a week before my sister's wedding whether I trusted my family, I would have said yes without hesitation. I was wrong. Growing up, my younger sister, Olivia, was always the center of attention. She wasn't a bad person. In fact, we were close. But our mother had spent our entire lives treating Olivia's milestones like national holidays. Birthdays, graduations, promotions, everything revolved around her. I learned early that keeping the peace was easier than competing for it. When Olivia got engaged, my mother transformed into a full-time wedding planner. Every conversation became about flower arrangements, seating charts, dress fittings, or making sure everything looked perfect. My pregnancy barely entered the conversation unless someone else mentioned it first. My doctor had already warned Daniel and me that our baby could arrive earlier than expected. "Don't ignore any unusual pain," she told us. "And keep your hospital bag nearby at all times." So we did. Even on the morning of the wedding, my overnight bag sat neatly in the trunk of our car just in case. Daniel suggested we skip the ceremony altogether. "Your health comes first," he reminded me. But my mother insisted nothing would happen. "It's only one afternoon," she said. "Your sister wants you there." Against Daniel's instincts and maybe my own, we arrived at the beautiful countryside venue, smiling for family photos while everyone admired the decorations. I kept telling myself I'd make it through the ceremony. Then, as I adjusted my dress outside the bridal suite, a sharp pain tightened across my stomach. I froze. A few seconds later, it happened again. The second wave of pain hit so hard that I grabbed the wall to steady myself. One of Olivia's bridesmaids noticed my face immediately. "Emily, are you okay?" Before I could answer, another contraction stole my breath. I think I'm in labor." The room fell silent. Someone whispered, "Call an ambulance." Before anyone could reach for a phone, my mother appeared in the doorway. "What is going on?" she demanded. I looked at her, trying to stay calm. "Mom, I need the hospital. The contractions are only a few minutes apart." For a split second I expected panic. Instead, her expression hardened. "No." I blinked. "What? You are not leaving 40 minutes before your sister's wedding." I thought she'd misunderstood. "Mom, this isn't a choice. The baby's coming." She lowered her voice so the others couldn't hear. "People have spent months planning today. You can hold on a little longer." Another contraction bent me forward. "I can't." As I reached into my purse for my phone, she stepped in front of me. "I need to call Daniel." The moment my fingers touched my phone, she snatched it from my hand. "Mom, I'll call him after the ceremony." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she snapped. "You are not going to ruin Olivia's wedding because of bad timing." The bridesmaids stared at each other, too shocked to move. Tears filled my eyes. "I'm scared." For just a moment I hoped those words would reach her. Instead, she grabbed my wrist. "Come with me." She pulled me into a quiet hallway away from the guests. Every step sent another painful contraction through my body. "Mom, please." She never answered. She stopped beside an unmarked door, turned the handle, and pushed me inside. Before I could turn around, the door slammed shut. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the lock. For a few seconds I simply stood there, staring at the closed door. Surely this was some kind of mistake. I grabbed the handle and twisted it. It wouldn't move. "Mom," I shouted, pounding on the door. "Open it." Her voice came from the other side, calm enough to make my stomach turn. "The ceremony will be over in 40 minutes. Just stay quiet." I hit the door harder. "I'm in labor." "I know." Those 2 words terrified me more than anything else. She knew, and she was still leaving me there. Another contraction ripped through my body, forcing me to my knees. I reached into my pockets out of instinct, forgetting she'd taken my phone. Nothing. No phone. No way to call Daniel. No way to call for help. The room was barely larger than a walk-in closet. Metal shelves lined the walls, stacked with folded tablecloths, cleaning supplies, spare decorations, and boxes of candles waiting for the reception. There wasn't a window anywhere. Only one locked door. I screamed until my throat burned. I banged on the metal shelves, hoping someone outside would hear the noise. Instead, faint music drifted through the walls. The ceremony had started. While guests smiled, applauded, and watched my sister walk down the aisle, I was trapped. Minutes blurred together. The contractions grew closer. Stronger. I tried counting my breathing the way the childbirth class had taught me. It didn't help. Sweat soaked through my dress. My hands shook so badly I could barely push myself off the floor. Please. I whispered to no one. I just need help. The music outside swelled with applause. Then everything around me began to blur. The shelves. The floor. The light above my head. My eyelids grew impossibly heavy. The last thing I remember hearing was the sound of cheering from the wedding reception. Then the darkness swallowed everything. The first thing I noticed was the steady beeping of a heart monitor. Then came the bright lights. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy, but I forced them open. The ceiling above me wasn't the wedding venue. It was a hospital room. I turned my head and saw Daniel sitting beside the bed. His suit was wrinkled, his tie was gone, and his eyes were red as if he hadn't stopped crying for hours. The moment he realized I was awake, he grabbed my hand. Emily. His voice cracked. I thought I lost you. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry. The baby. A smile broke through his exhausted face. Our little girl is safe. I closed my eyes in relief as tears rolled down my cheeks. She needed extra monitoring after the emergency delivery, he explained softly. But the doctors say she's going to be okay. I finally allowed myself to breathe. Then another question hit me. How did they find me? Daniel's expression darkened. When you stopped answering your phone, I knew something was wrong. I searched the entire venue. Your mother kept telling everyone you'd gone home because you weren't feeling well. He paused, shaking his head. But that didn't make sense. He told me he'd checked the parking lot. Our car was still there. My hospital bag was still in the trunk. There was no way I had left without him. After the ceremony ended, one of the catering employees heard faint banging coming from a storage room while cleaning up. They unlocked the door. I was unconscious on the floor. The employee called emergency services immediately. Daniel looked away for a moment before speaking again. There's something else. Several guests had witnessed my mother pulling me into the hallway before the ceremony. One guest had even recorded part of the argument on their phone, believing it was nothing more than wedding stress. That recording showed my mother taking my phone away. A gentle knock interrupted us. A detective stepped into the room with a small notebook in his hand. He introduced himself, then pulled a chair beside my bed. His voice was calm. Mrs. Carter. He looked directly into my eyes. Did anyone intentionally prevent you from getting medical help that afternoon? I didn't hesitate. Yes, I answered. My mother knew I was in labor. She took my phone, locked me inside that storage room, and left me there. The detective wrote down every word without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded once. Thank you, Mrs. Carter. By the next morning, the investigation was already moving quickly. Several wedding guests had come forward on their own. One bridesmaid admitted she'd heard me begging to call Daniel before my mother pulled me into the hallway. Another guest confirmed hearing my mother say, "You can wait until after the ceremony." Then the catering manager gave an even more disturbing statement. According to him, my mother had stopped one of the employees from checking the storage room earlier that afternoon. She'd smiled and said, "It's just family belongings. Please don't open it until the reception is over." The employee believed her. No one imagined a frightened pregnant woman was trapped inside. Daniel visited me later that day carrying a small flash drive. "The venue has security cameras," he said quietly. My heart pounded. The footage showed my mother leading me down the hallway while I struggled to keep up between contractions. It captured her taking my phone. It showed her opening the storage room door. Then, it showed her walking away alone. There was no footage inside the room. There didn't need to be. The timeline spoke for itself. When my sister Olivia finally came to the hospital, her wedding makeup was gone, replaced by swollen, tear-filled eyes. "I didn't know," she whispered the moment she saw me. "I swear, Emily, I didn't know." I believed her. She sat beside my bed in complete silence before asking one heartbreaking question. "Are all my wedding pictures being taken while you were locked in there?" I couldn't answer. I didn't have to. The look on her face told me she already knew. As she stood to leave, she slowly slipped off her wedding ring and placed it on the bedside table. "I don't even recognize the family I grew up in," she said. Then she walked out, leaving the ring behind. The weeks after my daughter's birth should have been filled with nothing but happiness. Instead, they became the weeks my family finally stopped pretending. Olivia came to see me almost every day. One afternoon, she sat beside my hospital bed and quietly said, "I canceled the honeymoon." I looked at her in surprise. "I couldn't celebrate knowing what happened to you." A few days later, she confronted our mother in front of several relatives. "I'll never get another wedding," my mother argued through tears. Olivia shook her head. "You almost made Emily's daughter grow up without a mother." The room fell completely silent. For the first time in my life, no one defended her. Relatives who had ignored years of favoritism finally admitted they had seen it all along. One by one, they walked away. Daniel and I decided we weren't going to spend our energy fighting anymore. We focused on bringing our little girl home, learning sleepless nights, tiny smiles, and the quiet joy of becoming parents. For the first time, I stopped chasing my mother's approval. My family wasn't the one I was born into anymore. It was the one Daniel, our daughter, and I were building together. Just when I believed that painful chapter was finally behind us, a handwritten letter arrived in our mailbox with my mother's name on the envelope. I opened my mother's letter only once. It was filled with apologies. She wrote that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she wished she could take that day back, and that she hoped one day I'd forgive her. I folded the letter, placed it back inside the envelope, and tucked it away. Forgiveness, I realized, didn't have to mean reopening the same door that had once been locked against me. Some wounds heal best with distance. Today, when I watch my daughter laugh in Daniel's arms, I don't think about the wedding anymore. I think about the family we've built with love, trust, and kindness. The day my mother locked me away, she believed she was protecting one perfect moment. Instead, she lost something far more valuable. And I finally found the life, and the peace, I had deserved all along.